Hello, welcome to our very first lesson for the intermediate course of learning how to play piano for worship. I am so glad that you can join us today. This lesson will be numbered 201. In this lesson, it will be a jump from our basic course from 101 all the way up to 106. So in this lesson, what we'll learn is that we'll learn just one new chord, and we'll continue to play the Still by Hillsongs United with that new chord. I'll run through the basics of major and minor chords with you so that you understand this principle a little bit better. Now, let us look at the keyboard. At the keyboard itself, you can see that for the 4 different chords that we have learnt in the basic course, the C, the A minor, the F, and the G, we realize that 3 of them are major chords, namely the C, F, and G, and 1 of them is a minor chord, which is the A minor. Let me give you a good tip to differentiate what's a major and what's a minor, so that you'll be able to apply it for any chord later on that you learn, be it in the C scale or even in the other scales as well. If we look at the C major chord first, the C, the E, and the G, what we realize is that between the first 2 notes, the C and the E, there are actually 3 notes in between. And the second note and the third note of the C major chord, there are 2 notes in between. So that's what happens for any major chord. Let me just show you that in the F major chord so that you can see the similarity. For the F major chord of the F, A, and C, we can see that between the F and the A, which is the first 2 chords of the F major, there are 3 notes in between. And the A and the C of the F major chord, the second and the third note of the F major chord, there are 2 notes in between. Let me go to the G major chord. So for the G major chord, we realize that between the G and the B, the first 2 notes of the G major chord, there are 3 notes yet again in between. And the B and the D, there are 2 notes in between. So there you go. If you want to play any major chord, you realize that there will be 3 notes in between the first 2 notes of that chord and 2 notes for the last 2 notes of that chord. Let me show you an example. If let's say we decide that we want to learn the D major chord later on, we realize that D, of course, should start with D. We count 3 notes, 1, 2, and 3, and this should be your next note of your D major chord. Then from the next note, you count 2 notes, and the next note should be the last note of the D major chord. So the D major chord sounds like this. Okay, I'll just show you one other example. If let's say we are looking for the A major chord. Now we have learned the A minor chord previously, but right now if let's say we're looking for the A major chord, then naturally we put our thumb on A, we count 3 notes, and the next note is your second note of your A major chord. From there we count 2 notes, and the next note is your full A major chord itself. So your A major chord sounds like this. Okay, this is a very, very important principle about major chords. Now, the next thing that we're going to touch on would be minor chords. Minor chords will have a different kind of numbering, so it'll be easy to remember as well. Let's start off with the A minor chord. For the A minor chord, we can see that it comprises of A, C, and E. Actually, it's quite the opposite of the major chord. Between the first 2 notes of the A minor chord, there are 2 notes. And between the last 2 notes of the A minor chord, there are 3 notes. Okay, so it's a 2-3 kind of pattern instead of a 3-2 kind of pattern. Let me just show it to you again. So A minor chord, 2 notes between the first 2 notes of the A minor chord, and 3 notes between the last 2 notes of the A minor chord. Just one more example before I let you try out something. If let's say we want to look for E minor, now we need to remember that E minor will have 2 notes between the first 2 notes and 3 notes between the last 2 notes of the E minor chord. So let's start off with E, and then we go 2 notes, and this should be the next note of the E minor chord. Then we count 3 notes again, 1, 2, 3, and this should be the last note of the E minor chord. So this is how it sounds for E minor. Now finally, can I just get you to find where D minor is on the keyboard? I recommend that you just pause the video, find it out, and I'll review the answer shortly. Okay, I hope you got that. If we're looking for the D minor chord, it will be like this. D, count 2 notes. This is the next one, count 3 notes. And this is the next one. So your D minor chord sounds like this. Okay, fantastic. In fact, that was a very good introduction into major and minor chords, because if you want to play any major or any minor chord, just need to follow that pattern for major chords. 3 notes in between the first 2 notes, 2 notes in between the last 2 notes, and for minor chords, 2 notes in between the first 2 notes and 3 notes between the last 2 notes, and you can find out any major or minor chord within the piano itself. Okay, so let's move on. Remember, during the basic course, I told you that Still by Hillsongs United had simplified chords because I wanted it to be for beginners. Now on screen, you can just take a look at the intermediate chords. As you can see, for the intermediate chords, we have a D minor over there. So that's what we'll use in this lesson. Okay. As you can see as well on screen, that I have removed the numbers as well, which means to say there is no more 4 beats, 2 beats, 4 counts, 2 counts to the chords, and you will need to figure out to a certain extent for the D minor and for the other chords how many beats there are. This is quite similar to the kind of scores that you would receive if you're playing for worship in your congregation. So sometimes you'll need to figure out whether it's 2 beats, 4 beats, or sometimes even 1 beat, and so on. So right now, what I'd like you to do is to just pause the video, try out to play Still by Hillsongs United with these new chords, with the continuous playing style. And when you start the video again, I will show you how does this look like. Okay, I hope you have done that successfully. Now let me show you Still by Hillsongs United with the new chords, with the D minors in between as well. Okay, first things first, switching on my metronome to 75 beats per minute. And we shall start. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. How do you fare at that? Okay. A little bit more complicated than the basic playing style. I urge you to continue to practice this over and over again until you get used to it. If you realize the difference between the basic chords and the intermediate chords as well, for the final C, and only for the final C, I went down all the way to the bass C itself, whereas I don't use this C up here, but I just go down because it gives a very nice ending to the song. So from this lesson onwards, we will always end off the song with this final C itself. Just a sneak preview for our next lesson. Our next lesson, we will be learning melody introduction for still, and it will be a very, very interesting lesson to look out for. I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson. Thank you.